in my heart and mind, I honestly feel like within 20 years. That's just
20 here. You heard
it here first, folks.
You are listening to Saints in the South. All right, welcome everyone. This is season 2, episode 90. We are Saints in the South, representing saints everywhere, and we are your source for gospel growth and good times.
Believe it.
Whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Saints in the South. You can also check out our website, saintsinthesouth.com, where you can leave us a review and a rating.
We're everywhere.
That's right. Hey, couple new features.
Speaking of being everywhere.
That's right. You may have noticed that Facebook now has a podcast section where our RSS feed actually loads directly to Facebook.
Yep.
So you can access it there. Also, with the reviews and ratings, anything that is left on our website will post directly to Facebook and Twitter on our accounts there and everything. So
awesome.
So if you would, please leave your comments, go onto the website and everything. It'd be greatly appreciated.
Yep. Absolutely.
So this week we are in sections 109 and 110. It is thy house, a place of thy holiness. And so we're in, let's see, 1836,
March 27th.
So after all the persecutions and everything going on in Jackson County, Missouri, they had already started building the temple, but they had taken a break, dealt with that stuff down there. And then once that was cleared up, or they decided, that wasn't the place to be,
right?
They said, okay, we got to get focused on building the Kirtland Temple. And they put what you call blood, sweat, and tears into building the Kirtland Temple, made a lot of sacrifice. And actually Joseph points that out here in a little bit that we mentioned, but anyway, so section 109 is the dedicatory prayer that Joseph offered. So.
Yeah. in all my wisdom, I go to as I'm reading this thing, I'm thinking, wow, this sounds just as if the Lord wrote this, like his other sections. And I'm like, this is actually Joseph Smith's prayer, and I was like, this is really cool. So in my mind, I start thinking of all these things like, well, Joseph Smith is now decently seasoned in being a prophet, and he's not a learned man of the world anyway, worldly education, but he's learned directly from the Lord, and so he's speaking eloquently here because he's communed with the Lord a few times. And so I'm thinking, wow, this is very interesting that it sounds like as if the Lord is speaking here, this whole prayer. And then of course, as I went to underline that, heading, and I actually read the heading this time, which is, we should always do. It says, according to the prophet's written statement, this prayer was given to him by revelation. So this is actually the Lord's words.
You thought you had a good
point.
I thought
I had a great thing there, which it is. I mean, it's still valid. I mean, obviously the prophet does speak eloquently when he needs to, as in the capacity of a prophet, and etc. But this was given to him as revelation, because, and I feel like in my mind and heart that this was to be given as a pattern, just as the temple's a pattern, how to build it was a pattern, etc., etc., etc. This was a pattern of how to dedicate a temple, and the Lord gave that revelation to him to show him, this is what you do at a dedication. This is what you say. This is how it should go. And today that template is still followed. Okay. Russell Nelson or whoever, one of the apostles, dedicates a temple, they still follow somewhat this same template. Doesn't mean that the Lord dictates exactly everything they should say, but they have it here to know how to somewhat go about how temple is dedicated. And
it makes sense with Kirtland being the first one in this dispensation to be dedicated and everything.
Absolutely.
So, so we'll just kind of go through and point out a few of the verses or parts of the revelation that we like. One thing that stood out to me is that there were several things that were repeated. That had been in prior revelations.
Which went right into that thing like, okay, this sounds like the Lord speaking. And it is. I mean, it is. Yep. So I was like, this is very cool how, but it's true.
But I will point out the first one that jumps out to me is verse 5.
That's the first one I had underlined.
It is. Okay. Yep. So verse 5, for thou knowest that we have done this work through great tribulation and out of our poverty we have given of our substance to build a house to thy name, that the Son of Man might have a place to manifest himself to his people.
Mm-hmm.
So Joseph, he acknowledges, and the Lord, obviously the Lord acknowledges here that this was built through sacrifice on the backs of the saints.
Right.
So I think that's to me that's very significant. That the recognition is given that there was a lot given up in order to get this done.
I like the fact that it says that towards the end of it, that the Son of Man might have place to manifest himself to the people.
Right.
And you think, whoa, wait a minute. So Jesus is good. I'm going to see Jesus in the temple. I used to think that. I used to think, man, I can't wait for that day I can see Jesus in the temple. That's going to be so cool. And as you get older, you start to realize, I mean, that can happen. Right. Sure. If Lord wills it, if there is a place he's going to be, it'll be there. But you know what I mean? And John A. Widsoe said, it's a great promise that to the temples, God will come, and what in them, and that in them man shall see God. What does this promise communion mean? He says, does it mean that once in a while God may come into the temples, and that once in a while the pure in heart may see God there? Or does it mean the larger thing, that the pure in heart who go to the temples may there, by the Spirit of God, always have a wonderfully rich communion with God? He says, I think that is what it means to me and to you and to most of us. We have gone into these holy houses with our minds freed from the ordinary earthly cares and have literally felt the presence of God. In this way, the temples are always places where God manifests himself to man and increases his intelligence. A temple is a place of revelation. So yeah, God is manifest in the temples. Yeah. We do see and feel and hear God in the temples.
Right. So it's not manifest isn't just about seeing.
Doesn't have to be a literal
That's
thing.
Right.
It's an actual, and when in reality, if you think about it in the Book of Mormon and things, the Lord says to receive things by the Spirit is even more powerful than just seeing him. Think of Laman and Lemuel seeing angels, or even some others, that have actually had some very powerful things. And, Oliver Cowdery saw the Lord also, but he did fall away for a little while from the church. He came back, that's good. But what I'm getting to is the Spirit is what can keep you there.
Right.
Visual things aren't as important. So what else you got? I got 13. I just I didn't make a lot of notes in this one because everything's just so good. It's sort of straightforward. 13, and that all people who shall enter upon the threshold of the Lord's house may feel thy power and feel constrained to acknowledge that thou hast sanctified it, and that is thy place, a place of holiness. The thing that's entering my mind right now is open houses.
Yes.
Open houses, man. It's like it can be one of the most powerful ways to allow non-members of the church to enter into the Lord's house, a literal house of God. It's not consecrated at this point or anything, or dedicated is what I should say. It's not dedicated and all that at this point, but I can promise you the Spirit of the Lord is there. And its power.
Think about whenever they get the Salt Lake Temple to be getting it finished up before they dedicate it. Can you imagine the numbers that's going to go through?
I'm going to tell you the one I'm going to next year. I mean, if the Lord hasn't, taken me from the earth, I'm going to try my heart. I want to go to the Washington, D.C. one.
Right.
It's in, I don't forgot. I think it might be sometime in April, May, somewhere. I don't know. Sometime next year. But I really want to go to that one. I really want to go to that one.
Yeah, I think about just non-members being able to go through and see and see those things and stuff.
So my dad had an opportunity. My dad's not a member. I've mentioned it before. He had an opportunity to go to the one in Atlanta when they rededicated it because they done some renovation on it and they rededicated it but he was able to go to that open house. And and my kids did too, my girls and my son, when they were a lot younger though. And so that was a pretty great experience there. But yeah, you can feel the Lord's power and you're constrained. I love this. And feel constrained to acknowledge that thou hast sanctified it. In other words, you have to know. I mean, it's without a doubt that this is the Lord's house.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I thought that was a very interesting verse there.
To me, verses 28 through 33 is pretty interesting, where he's praying that the Lord will basically, fight their battles for them, acknowledging the persecution that they have faced thus far, and also acknowledges that things will continue to be hard. And he says, like 31, for thou knowest, O Lord, that thy servants have been innocent before thee, and bearing record of thy name, for which they have suffered these things. Therefore we plead before thee for a full and complete deliverance from under this yoke. We'd mentioned maybe a couple of episodes ago about, how long is this burden? That's kind of what Joseph is alluding to here. How long is this burden, is this persecution going to last?
Yep.
And he's asking, he says, please have mercy on your people and the saints. Take it from us.
Yeah.
Don't let them, continue to attack us.
And I love how he says it in 33.
Yet 33, break it off, O Lord, break it off from thy necks of thy servants by thy power, that we may rise up in the midst of this generation and do thy work.
I'm interested to know. This is also Joseph. He is a prophet. I want to know how much the Lord did give him revelation for this, but I wonder how much specifics he gave. I think there's some Joseph Smith in here. I mean, you know what I mean when I say that. But I would be interested, for those that may know, can put it in the comments or whatever. I would like to know if there is something out there. I'm sure I could probably find it also if I try to study and look it up. But I'd like to know sort of how much of input he put into this. So I'm sure he had desires of his heart he wanted to say, obviously. So
absolutely. I think of in the beginning when he talked about, hey, we've sacrificed in doing that. And when it talks about being received by revelation, I mean, you and I and everybody else can receive a revelation, right? But you're following the promptings of the Spirit,
right?
And I think that's what's taking place here.
Perhaps what the Lord gave was more of an outline, like you want to say this and this and this, and sort of mention this and this, and then he inserted his what he wanted, his from his heart, and
absolutely.
what he felt inspired, obviously all inspired to do. So that's interesting. As I'm reading it again, as I'm looking, I'm like, okay, this sounds like it would come from Joseph Smith's heart. Which obviously, if he's a prophet of the Lord, his heart should be connected to the Lord's heart. They should be one in purpose, in a way. Obviously it is. And so anyway, that's very interesting there. It kind of hit me there as I was reading that.
Yeah, verse 45 and 46, he says, we know that thou hast spoken by the mouth of thy prophets terrible things concerning the wicked in the last days, that thou wilt pour out thy judgments without measure. Therefore, O Lord, deliver thy people from the calamity of the wicked. He's saying, give it to them. We've suffered. Give it to them, Lord.
He really does. Oh Lord, how long without, this is 49, suffer this people to bear this affliction. And, he keeps coming up and, saying, how long is this going to last?
Yep.
And, so, and he has great concern. This is one of them things, just like, we had talked about last week about Elder Harding being, over the disaster area, with the hurricanes and stuff, but yet he also had the task of taking care of that state conference and uplifting and inspiring. So that here's Joseph Smith trying to uplift and inspire people, but also he knows what's happened in Missouri and persecution of the saints and all that's going on too. He's got that on his mind. So he's mentioning it here, how long does this got to, we got to get going. I feel like it's just, they're getting persecuted over and over and over. And anyway, so he's just, that's the question. I think a lot of times it's not why, and it can be, it obviously can be why, Lord, but I think I find myself more going, okay, I know why things like this happen, but how long does it need to happen?
Right.
I mean, I feel like I got it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I got that part, but then it makes you a little bit scared when you say that and go, well, maybe I don't want what's coming next. Maybe I don't want the next lesson. Maybe I want to hang on this one for a little bit. I don't want the next, but
That's right. Verse 54, I really liked. He says, have mercy, O Lord, upon all the nations of the earth. Have mercy upon the rulers of our land. May those principles which were so honorably and nobly defended, namely the Constitution of our land by our fathers, be established forever.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, that right there is really kind of coming home to today, as we continue to see the struggles that America goes through right now.
And you think, this was 1836. It's not even 100 years since the nation's been established. So just thinking about it in that way, we talk about the founding fathers today, and it's we can't even think that far back. It's
that's
so,
right,
so
yeah.
long ago. For them, it wasn't but like, what was that, 60, 70 years? I don't know, someone 76 to 36. I'm not good at math at
That's
all.
right, yeah.
But it's not
70,
very,
80 years,
not
yeah.
very, not very long. So
Mm-mm.
within some of those people's lifetimes, perhaps that they,
exactly.
you know, maybe they were 10 or 12 years old when the Constitution was, I don't know.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
where were you just at?
54, yeah.
Okay, so 61, I had underlined 61 and 62. But thou knowest that thou hast a great love for the children of Jacob, who, and this is Israel, you know, obviously he's talking about, who have been scattered upon the mountains for a long time in a cloudy and dark day. We therefore ask thee to have mercy upon the children of Jacob, that Jerusalem from this hour may begin to be redeemed. In other words, the gathering of Israel.
Yeah.
Here we go. And then, of course, we see, and this is the prophet of the Lord in 1836, and we see today in 2021, President Nelson is like, it's time.
Right.
I mean, the gathering of Israel is the most important thing we can be involved in today. That's what he said.
Right.
And so here we are. If it was that close then, if it started then, I say started.
Well, the very next section,
Right.
110.
Yeah, that's true. It
right.
really starts rolling. And then the last thing I had was 71. Remember, O Lord, the presidents, even all the presidents of thy church, that thy right hand may exalt them with all their families and their immediate connections, and their names may be perpetuated and had an everlasting remembrance from generation to generation. I mean, he's talking about future presidents of the church,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. I just thought it was very interesting that was thrown in there. You know, not many people can say they're the president of the church. It's,
right.
You know, only just been a handful. And literally, like what is President Nelson's, what, number 17 or something, or 18 somewhere. We haven't had a lot of presidents of the church as far as like the president of the church. Obviously there's state presidents and elder quorum presidents, and I'm sure that could be obviously thrown in here too. The Lord's also going to remember them. But you know what, I feel like he's sort of talking about the presidents of, you know, those that have that what he has,
right,
you know, that you
right,
get, that they got to take on this thing. In my mind, that's the way I read it. But I thought that was interesting as well. But yeah, the whole section, man, there's a lot, just great. There's great promises. There's promises that will be delivered from terrible things to be poured out upon the wicked in the last days. So, you know, a lot of this prayer isn't just for those saints in 1836. At the time it was, you know, this is what it was for, because it was a dedicatory prayer in that time. But if you read about it, these are promises for us today. I mean, these saints were in the last days, right?
Yeah.
These saints were in the last days. I think we're in the last minutes.
Right.
I mean, let's just be honest. I think we can actually start. It needs to, you know, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day or Latter Minute Saints or something. Maybe we should go with that, because I really feel like if they were close,
right,
I mean, the door's starting to crack open. I mean, let's just be honest. And anyway, so
well, speaking of remembering, or this kind of applying to us as well, the very next verse 72 says, remember all thy church, O Lord, with all their families and all their immediate connections, with all their sick and afflicted ones, and goes on. Stuff. So section 110 is when the big,
this is when the rubber hits the road.
That's right.
This honestly, this is where, so we talk about the restoration of the gospel, right? And this happened in, basically, you can go back to 1820. You can say 1820. It really kicked off as far as like the heavens were open, revelation received,
right.
Joseph Smith. It begins, right? 1830, the church is organized. It's going, it's beginning. Okay, 1836, April 3rd, 1836. This had to be like where the Lord turned all the power on, basically. Put the juice to it. This is it. This is ready, go. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, so to your point, he ends, and I'll go ahead and start with the last verse of this section. Of a 110.
110.
Therefore, the keys of this dispensation are committed into your hands.
Yeah.
And by this you may know that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is near, even at the doors.
Right.
So he now, you know, everything has been, you know, that is needed for the gathering of Israel, you know, the temple work. Here it is, Joseph.
Right.
All right. You know, everything has been restored that is needed at this time.
Right.
Now let's go.
Right.
And stuff,
so 100, I just did the math because I'm not good with math. I had to use my calculator. 185 years to today from this day. That's as much as we've been in it as far as having everything we need
Right.
to gather Israel. Well, we're going to go through it. All these things that has to be done for the last days, 185 years. It's not a lot of time. I mean, it's not a lot of time.
It's minuscule compared to.
It's very
compared to
small. I mean,
the earth,
go
the time
back,
of Earth.
to, some of these prophets in the Old Testament, how long they lived. They lived
Well, yeah,
10,
Adam,
6
900
times
years,
over
Adam.
that, and so it's like, come on, not 6 times over. I'm not good with math. Everybody just know that off the bat. You can tell. But anyway, so this is not a lot of time. And you think, well, how much more time do we have? I've always thought about this, and I don't, in my heart, I feel like, and this is not doctrine. Please listen. I'm not an authority to be able to say anything about when the Lord's going to come. But what I'm getting to is it can't be far off with the way just with the signs that are happening. And when I say not far off, in my heart and mind, I honestly feel like within 20 years. That's just
20 here. You heard
it here first, folks.
20 years.
But listen to me. I know what I'm saying. This is nothing. This is not like the Spirit has told me this. Please don't take that for that. I'm just saying, in my heart, it kind of feels like, can we go? I guess this is the logic I'm using. Can we go 20 more years the way we're going,
on
the direction that we're heading?
Right. Yeah.
I just don't. What are we going to get to? I mean, what?
How bad does it have to get?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because
how long, oh Lord? Like Joseph's been saying. I just don't. So go back 20 years. Go back 20 years. Many of us can easily go back 20 years, which would put it us on 2000, year 2000, right, 2001, the Twin Towers. I mean, it kind of started getting bad then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But think about how much it has totally just. I don't know. It's could you go another 20? What's another 20 going to show? Anyway,
it's hard to imagine.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts and feelings. Now, please don't act like that was something that is in Scripture anywhere. It's not.
That's Saints in the South doctrine right there.
Yeah, right. This is mere mortals speaking here. But yeah.
So verse 5. The Lord appears first. He appears before.
Right.
He and Oliver, Joseph Smith and Oliver,
and
Calvary.
He accepts it. He accepts the house.
He accepts it.
This is I want to preface it. This is a week later after the dedicatory prayer. Dedicatory prayer was given the Sunday before. This is the next Sunday.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good
which
point.
I believe is Easter Sunday.
Yes,
Am
it is.
Right?
It is Easter Sunday. Yes.
So
April 3rd. Yep.
Yeah.
It was actually on Easter.
Yep.
Which is a good time to
which is significant for the Passover, things like that. The ancient tradition of Elias and Elijah showing up for the Passover, and so it happened. So in 1836,
he lets them know right up front, behold, your sins are forgiven you. You are clean before me. Therefore, lift up your heads and rejoice. Right. And the first few verses, and we're going to mention this, but the description that Joseph gives to seeing the Lord and everything.
Right.
And then verse 10, and the fame of this house shall spread to foreign lands, and this is the beginning of the blessing which shall be poured out upon the heads of my people. Even so, amen.
Yep.
And then evidently the Lord leaves. Yeah. And that's when we have the other individuals show up.
So here's the thing about the Kirtland Temple. It's different than any other temple. And this is what Joseph Fielding Smith can say it better than I can. He said the Kirtland Temple holds a peculiar place in the annals of temple building. It is not like any other temple. It was built primarily for the restoration of the keys of authority. In the receiving of these keys, the fullness of the gospel ordinances is revealed. In the Kirtland Temple, there was no provision made for the salvation of the dead. It had no baptismal font. It had no provision for the endowment ordinances, which were later revealed. It was a temple, however, and fully answered the purpose of its creation. The Kirtland Temple filled its mission shortly after the time of its dedication. So, honestly,
right.
I'll just put it like this, and this is going to sound terrible. If the temple was destroyed on April 4th, 1836, it had done its. It had
fulfilled the measure of its creation.
Right. And so it was to restore these keys.
Right.
the Lord had to come down in that house to endow people with that power, or to give them that power, to give his servants that power, those elite, I don't want to say elite, but those elders of the church that needed that power, those keys to perform the future ordinances that the people needed, endowments, baptism for the dead. We'll see, we'll get into it, but that's what the Kirtland Temple was for. That's what it was for. And then Nauvoo comes along, and that's where they start doing actual endowments for people, giving them, that's where all that started more so, as it went. Baptisms for the dead was happening. I think they had it in rivers and stuff, though, mostly.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, this temple was different, but
so Moses, he'd restored the keys of the gathering of Israel,
right,
from the four parts of the earth. Verse 11 says, after this vision closed, the heavens were opened again, open unto us, and Moses appeared before us and committed unto us the keys of the gathering of Israel from the four parts of the earth.
Yep.
And leading of the 10 tribes from the land of the north, which is another conversation.
So the little background I got on it, Moses held the keys of the gathering of Israel. He led Israel out of Egypt into the land of Canaan. It was his appointment in this dispensation to come and restore the keys for the modern gathering, because he'd done it literally back then. So he has the keys for that today. And not long after Moses committed the keys of the gathering in Israel to the prophet Joseph Smith in the Kirtland Temple, the prophet began exercising these keys as he sent missionaries out into the world to assist in the gathering. So this is where all these
almost immediately afterwards
started happening.
When they started going overseas.
He received Kimball, Orson Hyde, and others who traveled to England in 1837 and baptized nearly 2,000 people.
Wow.
It started happening. I mean, just right away.
Yep.
I mean, there was no waste. Let's give it a couple of years and stare at the temple. No, it was.
Get to work. Yep. They had figured out that when the Lord had given a command, you start doing something, it was important to go ahead and jump on.
Absolutely. Remember, Hiram went out and got the shovel or the whatever it was, this sickle or whatever you call it, and started cutting the grass. And for the temple, whenever they sort of got a little chastisement there about, hey, you need to be hurry up and building this temple. What are y'all waiting for? He ran off, and this is what's happening now. Everybody's like, all right, we got to get moving,
Verse 12, Elias appears. Yep. And he committed the dispensation of the gospel of Abraham, saying that in us and our seed, all generations after us should be blessed.
So this is the one that people get. This was always the weird one to me, like Elias, Elijah. Wait a minute, which one's which?
Right.
Okay, Bruce Armour, I'm going to conky it up.
Okay.
Here we go. Bruce Armour conky explained the mission of Elias. It says the man Elias brings back the gospel of Abraham, the great Abrahamic covenant, whereby the faithful receive promises of eternal increase, promises that through celestial marriage, their eternal posterity shall be as numerous as the sands upon the seashore, or as the stars in the heaven for multitude. Elias gives the promise received of old by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that in modern men and in their seed, all generations shall be blessed. And we are now offering the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to all who will receive them. So basically, Elias coming, restoring the keys of basically how we can be blessed in this generation, and as we go in this dispensation, basically.
Right.
Yeah. That will continue to be blessed through all the
covenants
and all that. That's what he's restored to, or that he restored.
So then after Elias, we have verse 13 where Elijah appears, and he, verse 15, restores the keys of, like, what do you call that? Temple
ceiling,
the temple ceiling. The ceiling. There you go.
Yeah,
ceiling keys. He says, verse 15, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the children to the fathers, lest the whole earth be smitten with a curse. So he restores the ceiling keys and linking the generations.
Right. And I got the little James E. Faust. I'll Faust you up on this one. In the great vision in the Kirtland Temple, Elijah the prophet appeared to Joseph Smith all over Calvary. It committed the keys of temple work and the sealing power to Joseph's hands. It says this fulfilled Malachi's prophecy that Elijah would be sent to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. Okay, we just read that part. So what does this mean? It says to turn our hearts to our fathers is to search out the names of our deceased ancestors and perform saving ordinances for them in the temple. And this forges a continuous chain between our fathers, or us and our forefathers, all the way back to Adam. Basically, it says the gospel of Jesus Christ teaches us that the celestial family organization will be one that is complete. That is an organization linked from father and mother and children of one generation to the father and mother and children of the next generation, thus expanding and spreading out down to the end of time. So that's pretty straightforward. Elijah, coming coming back and doing that. So one of the thoughts I've had was whenever they mentioned, I just wanted to mention when it says Elijah come out, they gave sort of a little, I don't know what the word would be, a little prelude to what happened. It says another great and glorious vision burst upon us, for Elijah the prophet, who had been taken to heaven without death, stood before us. In other words, main attraction here,
right?
Elijah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
yeah,
that's what it sort of sounds like.
The main event.
I mean, I'm sure when Moses appeared, it was pretty cool too, and Elias, I'm sure. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? It sounds like they put a little twist, not a twist, a little extra,
that's
a little,
right.
little sauce on it, and says, "Whoa, another great man! This was Elijah, man. What's up?"
That's cool.
But no, I like that. But here's the thing: so when they return, and I've actually always thought about this, and I guess I should study into it more. I could probably find the answer. And you might know, I don't know, but when they restored these keys, was this a laying on of hands on the heads of them, or was this just a bestowal? I'm not sure. As I read this, I was thinking, I mean, it was done. That's all that matters. I just wonder what the manner was. I wonder how they did that. I don't know if they each had hands laid upon Joseph's head to give him those keys. That's the way we do it today. If you receive keys, it's an ordination.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because that's an interesting thought, because I mean, when you receive keys, you're being called to a specific calling, like elders quorum president, bishop.
This in general
president
was just given keys, I think, but
but he was already president of the church. He was already prophet.
Yeah, all those things.
And so it may have been something that, hey, by the way, this is something else that you need to start doing now.
Yeah.
But I also can easily envision
maybe somehow
through the laying on of hands as well. I mean, which is going back to patterns.
And it may be in the history. It might be in something that was written down, like Oliver Cowdery may have said it in something. Said they laid hands upon us and gave us those keys, or not really to Oliver, but to Joseph. Those keys were given to him, and then of course from Joseph to Oliver and to others in the quorum, and etc. But
be an interesting thought for anybody that would like to.
If anybody knows that history, hey, throw it down there in the comments, but obviously just a great day. And that had to be a little different too, I would think, from that point on, as far as seeing Joseph Smith, the prophet. There had to be obviously something, even a greater presence about him at that point when those keys were upon him. And
I know he continued to, you could almost say that he had fulfilled the measure of his creation as well.
Right. Oh yeah,
at this point.
Yeah.
Everything all the keys that needed to be restored to move forward with the returning of the Lord, the restoration of the gospel, that it's done now.
Right.
Done.
And you know what though? I guess they did have some key. He did obviously had the keys of the priest, or the Melchizedek.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. But there were,
so he had those keys. There were keys of that nature to get those outward ordinances done.
Right.
Those things, baptism, things like that need to be done, sacrament. But now he has the keys.
That's right. Yeah.
All the keys, I guess you should say, that's needed here upon the earth. And they've never been taken away. They've never been taken away, nor ever will, because the Lord promised that.
Right.
That and there was always this thing, and I don't know if it was a rumor or just something made up. Remember how you used to always say, well, there's always an apostle missing at conferences.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I never really bought into it too much, because I thought if the Lord can protect 11 of them, he'll protect 12 of them sitting there, or 50, 14 and 15, or whatever, for all those keys. I said, the Lord can do what he wants. I mean, that whole building could burn to the ground and one of them dudes is going to walk away. I mean, so
like Nephi and Lehi.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? It's, so I never, because especially when they had the temple dedication in Rome, they were all there.
Yeah.
I've started, and I do it every time now. When I see a conference, I look and I count. It's like, and a lot of times there will be one missing, and I don't know why or what, or
I don't know about
what the deal is with that. But yeah, I mean, if anybody knows that, throw it down in the comments. But anyway, the keys are here, not to be taken away.
Here to stay. There you
go.
And
these are powerful things, man. If you think about what's the threefold mission of the church, or what is it? It's proclaiming the gospel, redeeming the dead, and perfecting the saints.
Right.
And it's all right here in these keys, man.
Right.
That's these keys. That's what it is.
That's it. Well, there you go. Episode 90 in the books. Until next time, y'all keep on striving.